everybody, Backyard Bullion here. Now today we've got a really interesting video to share about a pretty horrible situation that happened in September, October last year for us here in the Backyard Bullion household. You've probably seen from the title and thumbnail that the topic in question is about some contaminated silver that we had fail assay tests up at the Edinburgh Assay Office. Now this all happened last year, as I said, September, October. We haven't talked about it until today because I just didn't feel the time was right. We had an awful lot going on, and that will form part of today's kind of discussion and story as well. Just dealing with that situation was incredibly hard for me personally, emotionally, logistically. There was an awful lot of stuff to do. We just didn't feel it was the right time to share that story. But now, with a bit of hindsight and reflection over this last couple of months in that horrible time, we have now decided that it is the right time to share our story in the hopes that it can help support others out there that might be going through hard times or similar times with their silver if you have contamination issues, and how you deal with things emotionally and also physically, because it was a really, really tough time for me. Now, before I go any further in the video, I want to put a huge personal thanks in here to Mrs. Backyard Bullion, who was my rock. I was a mess when this first happened because there were so many things going through my head about the potential for the business to go under, or what does it all mean? Where's this contamination come from? What's the reasons for it? What I'm going to do for all my customers that are waiting patiently for orders or new projects to come out. There were so many questions, and I didn't deal with it as best as I perhaps could have done in the first couple of days. And Mrs. Backyard Bullion, thank you. You really did help and save me. Also, thanks to our friends and family who were there to help and support along the way. Also, a big thank you to the Edinburgh Assay Office themselves, who were absolutely stunning and amazing in helping through this situation, work through it. We were very fortunate enough to actually go up to the Edinburgh Assay Office in person on the 15th of October 2019, after we'd sorted everything out, to have some pieces hallmarked live in front of us. And we spoke with them many times. We said huge thank yous to them when we got there, let me tell you, in October. But they were incredible. The lab techs, the production managers, everybody at that team, just wonderful people. So thank you to them. So let's crack on with the story. Now, one of the reasons why we're only talking about this now rather than when it happened, as I said, was because we had so much on at the time that I didn't feel up to it. I didn't have the emotions ready to go for it. We were up against it in terms of production for various different items that we had in the pipeline. One of those was the 3-ounce silver forum rounds and the 5-ounce silver forum rounds, which part of this failed hallmarking actually affected in a way in that we had to go back and look to how we had created these items, and you'll see these little black marks here. I'll talk about those in a minute because that does form part of what we were looking at here. So we haven't talked about it until now, just simply because we wanted to get the year done. We wanted to make sure that we rectified everything in the right way. We got our equipment back up to standard so that there were no more contamination issues. We wanted to get all of our products out, get all our commitments out before Christmas. And it was such a busy period. I was not ready emotionally to talk about this situation. But now we are here. We are done with all of that, thank God. We are back to normal. We are producing silver, it's passing assay tests just fine, and I'm feeling good about life in general with regards to this situation. So let's go ahead with the story. So what actually happened? What was the actual contamination? So the contamination that we experienced was iron oxide, more commonly known as rust. So iron oxide had somehow found its way into the system. Now, when I say the system, I mean at some point along the way, iron oxide has been introduced either through the silver, whether that was contaminated, and I don't think it was that, because we sent samples of the silver casting grain, for example, that we had to the Edinburgh Assay Office, and they did not find any evidence of any iron filings or casting, pieces of iron in there, in that casting grain. Or it's come from pieces of our equipment, which is the most likely scenario, or it could just generally have come from atmospheric contamination here. Now, for those of you who don't know, we work in our kitchen here in the Backyard Bullion household. I have my workstation on a removable board, and I literally just put it on my kitchen hob, and at the end of the day, I'll move that off, we'll have our kitchen back. It's not the ideal workshop by any means. There's graphite dust flying everywhere. The work table, the table that I'm filming on here, is our dining room table, and that I use as a general workbench. I'll have my anvils, my hammers, all of these other things out there that are made of iron, and I have noticed that some of them have got rust spots and things like that. You know, there'll be water flying around. I sometimes use vinegar to clean my pieces. Bits of vinegar will hit the iron, and it perhaps will then oxidize some of it. We used to use that vinegar then to clean some of these items, which could have had some of the iron oxide transferred onto the vinegar. Anyway, the point is that that is the most likely scenario for some of the iron oxide to get into the system. Now, to the actual contamination in question. So these pieces here are not the ones that actually failed the assay test. We've already cleaned, rectified, and resubmitted and sorted out all the ones that were failed. However, these are exactly the same in the way that they look to the pieces that did fail. And you'll notice that there's some black blemishes on all of these items. Now, these are what I have commonly come to say graphite schmutz. And the graphite schmutz comes from the graphite crucibles that we use to melt the silver. It degrades over time. They degrade over time the more you use them, and the more dust comes out. And often you'll get, really nice, clean, crisp pours when you have a brand new crucible, or when you've really cleaned out your crucible, got lots of the dust spots out of there. But sometimes it will just have a lot of the graphite dust that comes out, and it will come out onto the silver in one of two ways. One way, which is like this, and you'll see this sort of pale, color that's on this piece of silver. This is just a crap. I say crap, it is crap. It's just a piece of scrap silver that didn't quite work out. And you can see this pale bit here. This is just graphite, and this actually rubs off quite easily. You'll see if I just go over it very quickly with all things except a kitchen sponge, actually, of all things. It actually really works very well, certainly if you can get the right angle on this. And if you just brush for hard enough, you'll see that it's already starting to come off on that right hand side here. And then what we do afterwards, we can go over with a piece of very fine sandpaper just to polish it up, because there will be micro scratches, as you can see. Fine, easy. That's what we do and have been doing a lot of our pieces that have come out with a little bit of graphite schmutz. However, some of the slightly darker graphite schmutz that comes out here was identified, and I submitted some of these pieces without cleaning them, because I've done it before and it's not been an issue before. But some of these pieces that had the black schmutz on it ended up having iron oxide in it. Now that is what caused the assay failure. Doesn't mean that the what's called homogeneity of the entire silver is then reduced to less than 999. What it means is that there's a pinpoint part of a silver bar, round, whatever it might be, that has a little bit of contamination, and that means that that tiny little bit is not 999 silver. So it has to be the whole item, which is clean, clear, and not contaminated. So yes, it's a little bit harsh, and I know that there have been other pourers out there who've experienced similar situations where they've been failed on very minute surface contamination. And this really is surface contamination. Again, this stuff here will come off really very easily with a kitchen sponge. You know, it's a really good scourer. It takes off the top layer of this, and you can see already that those black parts have come off quite nicely, quite quickly, quite easily. And that's essentially what was the solution to this problem in terms of cleaning up the items. So it really wasn't a very difficult thing. However, the big problem came in that the Edinburgh Assay Office, quite rightly, could not pass a big submission of items that we had, missed a little bit on the edge here, could not pass a big batch of items that we sent up because there were some pieces that had this iron oxide failing. So that was the major issue that I experienced, in that we then had to obviously come back, re-clean, resubmit, do all of the work again, essentially. I ended up actually re-pouring an awful lot of them because there were quite a few that had these black spots on there, and I just wasn't sure whether or not that would actually be the remedy, just to clean it off like this. So it was really, really hard to sort of work through that process. The Edinburgh Assay Office were fantastic though. When we resubmitted some of these pieces and the iron oxide was still there, which was really, really disastrous and horrible, they then helped us by understanding some of how the physics of it works. Now, iron oxide is denser than silver. Sorry, silver is more dense than iron oxide, silver being more dense than iron. And what that means is that the iron oxide that's in the system, and because iron has a higher melting point than silver, it won't melt within the molten silver. It will float on the surface. and that will then be reflected when you pour it into a mould. And what they said was there were a couple of pieces that I'd submitted, and this is one of the scrap pieces that we had for the 5-ounce hammered rounds, and there were a few of them that looked like this with these pit marks in them. And these pit marks were the pieces that had the most iron oxide. Yes, there were a few that had a few speckles in these little black spots here, but the main culprits were items where you saw this patterning here, this kind of spotted patterning, and that's where these little tiny specks of iron oxide have been affecting the surface as the silver has cooled. And they suggested that it might be worth trying a very cool machine, which we then subsequently went and bought. They're not expensive, they're about £30–40 I think from Amazon, called a ultrasonic cleaner, ultrasonic water cleaner. So if I can get this up on the table, I don't know quite how this is going to show on camera. We can't see the whole machine, but it shows pretty much the entire machine there. Now this is a really interesting piece of machinery. It basically uses ultrasound technology to create many thousands of, millions of tiny little bubbles, and then that will basically shock clean. You can see, you just turn it on, various different settings. Probably won't be able to see anything happening in the water, but it will shock clean all of the silver. So we just turn that off now, and basically that will then get rid of all of these little lumps of iron oxide which are not bonded to the silver. And that's the really important thing to reiterate here, that the iron oxide that we were experiencing was not, oops, turn that on again, was not bonded to the silver. It was simply on the surface. So that's ultimately the solution that we've come through and by, and we are working through it great now. It's, as I said, working fantastically. We've had submissions go through, no problems, and it hopefully will be the long-term solution. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm feeling very positive about it. I'm still quite nervous and worried about these submissions when they go through. Naturally, I think it'd be natural to be nervous. You know, if you go through quite such a worrying event like we did, it's very difficult to get on with life in a normal way. And that's what I want to draw on in this second part of this video here today. We had that issue, we rectified the issue. One thing I haven't even talked about is, I mean, there's so many things we did. We replaced all of our equipment. So I got brand new furnaces, brand new worktop boards, had really thorough cleaning of all of my work area, because, as I said, one of the contamination sources could have been atmospheric, you know, rust particles, dust particles. You know, I was not being good at looking after my work area. As you've seen in probably some of the silver pouring videos, it was a pigsty, it was a mess. There was graphite dust everywhere, there was scrap pieces of silver lying everywhere, and it could have just very easily been contaminated from those sources. So, you know, that side of things, we did an awful lot of expense, a lot of, you know, of course, with all of these failed tests that you submit, you still have to pay for. You know, we paid for various other little bits of lab testing and assay testing and various other things like that. So all in, it was a pretty fun experience, and quite daunting, is probably the polite way of putting it. But I didn't deal with it very well at that time emotionally. And I want to talk about that here today. So a lot of the time on YouTube and social media generally, you see a lot of positivity, and I'm a victim of that too. I basically show a lot of positive stuff here on YouTube, and I'll show a lot of the YouTube silver pouring videos of where it goes well, of where it does, you know, comes out really pretty. You know, I don't show all of the horrible bad pours that come out that are not very nice and ugly and, you know, all graphite polluted and horrible. Don't show those. You know, maybe I should show more of them. Maybe I will show more of them in the future. I don't also necessarily tell you about everything that goes on in life, because life, you know, is private. Everybody's got their own issues to deal with, and you know, mental health issues is a big thing for a lot of people out there. But I did experience mental health issues around this. I really was incredibly worried. I was anxious. I was almost to the point, I wasn't diagnosed with anything or anything like that, but I was having pretty much close to anxiety attacks. I was having hyperventilation issues. I was incredibly emotional in this first sort of 24 hours of dealing with this. I was really worried about the potential for this to ruin my business, for it to ruin everything that we've been working for. To actually let people down was the most worrying thing for me, and that was the thing that I was struggling with most. You know, a lot of the pieces that we had were paid for already by people, and that was really worrying. It wasn't about the financial side of things, because I'm more than happy to refund, recompense people where that's, you know, going to happen, but it was more about the fact that I would let people down, and I didn't want to let people down, and I couldn't really get past that, and it was really, really very, very hard to deal with. And as I said at the start of the video, Mrs. Backyard Bullion was absolutely incredible at helping me through that, helping me work through those emotions to get to a point where we were able to continue. And you know, there were quite a few videos made at that time period, around this time on the channel, where my head was there talking about these things, doing these things on videos, but my heart was like screaming inside my chest, pounding, going, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. It's just, you know, I've got other things I need to do, or I just, this is too much for me. So it was really hard to get through, really, really hard to get through that time period, and Mrs. Backyard Bullion really did help a lot. Now, I wish with hindsight, this is the interesting thing, I wish I could have drawn on you guys more, because a lot of the time you are my support network, and I know a lot of you at the time, if I put a video out there talking about this and really shared my emotions, I know that a lot of you would have been incredibly kind and generous and you know, forthcoming with your help and support, and I do appreciate that you would have done that, but we chose not to talk about it at that time. I'm sure that there'll be some conspiracy theorist trolls out there that will be talking about the reason why we didn't, that we were hiding something or stupid like that. It really wasn't. We wanted to rectify the situation. We want to move on with it. We are here now talking about this. We're not hiding anything about the fact that we had a contamination issue. We're also very happy and proud about how we've handled the situation, how we have got to a point where we are now producing silver again that is hallmarked, that is clean, that is genuine 909 fine silver without a shadow of a doubt. And that is, like, that's the most proud thing I can think about. You know, we are able to just do it and continue doing it, and that's really important to us. And I have not sold a single piece of silver that has not got a piece of not got a hallmark on it. And that is the most important thing for us, to have that guarantee, for you guys to have that guarantee if you buy something. And that, I think, is more important than anything else that we do here on the channel. So ultimately, that is our story. You know, it was really hard in terms of the actual contamination. I suppose when we look back at it now, it wasn't necessarily the biggest deal, the biggest problem that we could experience in our lives. You know, I'm sure there are other people in the world that go through other things, but the fact that I felt so strongly about it, the fact that I had such a strong emotional response to it, I think you know, it made me open my eyes about what really matters in this world. And yes, it was horrible and sad, but I do think it's important to put oneself first. And you know, the fear of letting people down and the emotions attached to that was horrible. But ultimately, if that happens, and if we let you down, if there's something like that happens, I know it's not going to be the end of the world. That's life, and we get on with things, we move on with things. And that's where I want to finish this video, to say, you know, if you are out there and you're experiencing, you know, hard times, and you're going through something like this, or you're going through something personal, it doesn't have to be work related, anything can affect anybody in the same similar way, that there is support out there. There are people, friends, family, loved ones, professionals even, that can help you, and it's important to ask for help. I didn't ask for help here on YouTube, but I asked for help a lot of other places. I had friends, I had family, I had colleagues, I had people at the Edinburgh Assay Office. We had the support that we needed, and that is invaluable. I cannot stress enough how much that helps. So if you are experiencing something like that, then please, please, please ask for help. It is the best solution. Nobody can judge anybody for asking for help, and that is a really important thing to remember. If you feel like asking for help is a bad thing, don't. Just ask for help. That's our message here today. We hope you've enjoyed the story. I'm sorry it's been a long old ramble. It really has, and I've probably missed a couple of things out. You know, it is what it is. We've gone through it. We're stronger and better for it. I think sharing this story now is hopefully evidence to you guys out there that we take things very seriously here in the Backyard Bullion household. We don't want to let people down, but at the same time, if we do let people down, then we'll do it in the right way, without any kind of ramifications for individuals. And I think that's the most important message going forward, is that we are here to stay. We want to continue things going forwards. I'm happy. I'm you know, I'm a little bit emotional about talking about this here today. You probably tell from the voice, but I want to be upbeat at the end of the video. I want to say to you all that we are happy, we're healthy, we are looking forward to 2020. Life is busy for us, and that's good. So there we go. That is our story. thank you all for listening. I know it's a long old ramble, and I want to take a moment to say a big thank you to anybody who has listened to what we are now, minute 20 of this ramble video. It's greatly appreciated, so thank you very much. We look forward to bringing you all new content in the rest of the month and year. Thank you for watching. If you would like to take a moment to hit the thumbs up, and if you are not subscribed to our channel and you want to find out more about what we do and what we have done in this last couple of years, then hit that subscribe button and have a look at our video catalogue. Otherwise, that's it. Thanks for watching. Have a great week, and we'll see you on the next one. Please make sure that you like, share, comment and subscribe for more.